We are all with you in a game called Real Life. Preferably, most of us take out a server called Earth, and it's very cool that the developers took into account that each of us is different and has his own preferences in gameplay style and genre. Most people prefer the genre of economic strategia, also adding racing, simulators, and different sports directions. In other biomes, people choose fighting games and shooter na pravaya, but usually such gameplay threatens a ban from 5 to 15 years, and in neglected cases you can get per. Mac. Unless, of course, you catch a screen grab by that time. There are also biomes that have to temporarily choose gameplay. Tower Defent is when you get pounced on by orcs and goblins and have to fight them off to protect your territory and other players, such as merchants, crafters, and low-level characters. But there are biomes with some pretty unusual flavors. My tastes are pretty unusual. I'm afraid you wouldn't understand. There are people out there playing survival in the Choror genre Sadan. Homeless Edition is where the environment encourages the player to start using all sorts of weird potions and herbs that are put on them by evil babes, which from the outside looks like they've been possessed by a demon. No look, don't understand the non-population in Chi. A DC bum edith spamney. As dumb as it sounds, Bumse, it's like the rites of a Tibetan monk, only they do not keep the vow of silence and use skill verbal diarrhea with the addition of evil mats to enhance the effect and their main goal, and way of pumping is the eradication of vodka and other combustible substances. But all genres on our server have one thing in common: traits. Traits. The clearest signs that you are a support character. This is, if you are the most cooperative person, if you try to avoid conflict situations by any means, but here you will object to me. Why should we listen to this idiocy? After all, my mother taught me from childhood to be responsive and always help everyone. But here lies the main catch, as these passives really have positive buffs. But such a pumping starting build is very dangerous, because without the character's mounts you will be difficult to pump in solo, and Myad game and How ID content you may not see at all. It's also worth noting that your spound will have a big impact on what kind of starter build you'll be swinging. Those, someone spun. About the locations, names like Abode of Mazikov or Dwelling of the Bearer of the Mandate of the Deputy usually choose core builds, although their pumping leaves much to be desired. Therefore, if you Zaspalumni in locations such as Dormitory Romance, or locations stupidly in the fresh air, then do not rush to put an end to their pumping, even though it's going to be hard. But to reach mid-BLD, or even the content, is quite realistic. So why will it be much harder for you to progress? Well, it's simple, isn't it? If you are a maximally responsive character, it is much easier for you to help someone else than to do something for yourself. That's why such people do not even have goals in their lives, or if they have them, then such a person will not achieve it at any cost, as the priority will be to help others. The main passive of a compliant person, which, as a rule, behind the Makshena, is a failsafe help. This passive gives you 50% to strength and stamina at the moment of helping someone else, as well as 300% to motivation. But on our server, we see that most of the characters banned from 5 to 15 are men, which shows that this build is most often found in female characters, because characters with support builds very rarely do illegal actions for which you get a jailbird. What they do, jail bait chiseled in the ass. Also, with this build, it is difficult to master the profession of a merchant because the passive to enter the position gives you 100% communication and 50% charisma, but throws on you debav, naive disinterestedness. And if you start mastering the profession of a merchant, such a character will bargain more in favor of the buyer because he will try to help a person, not a compliant corb. The character will always haggle in his favor because he is here for that, to achieve his goal. Therefore, if you are already pumped up, support build. You need to overcome yourself to tell the truth to your face to say what you think. Pro builds lack straightforward linearity. They flatten and twist everything as much as possible. They do everything to avoid conflict, but it kind of sounds good. Why do we need conflict? But this way of thinking is a trap, because avoiding conflict doesn't equal solving it. It's not going anywhere. It may work in the short term, but for the long term, it doesn't work. If you want a quick fix, you need to engage in conflict because misunderstandings won't evaporate on their own. Oh, it needs to be talked about. And so you've listened to all this information and you've decided, I'm still young, I'll choose my own. Build, I will be a gnarly person. And this is a good idea, as these types of builds give you the ability to effectively set goals for yourself and achieve them. But this is a danger, because if you cannot pump the passive socialization in conjunction with your core skill, then in the early stages of your pumping, you can turn away from your potential partners, which in turn will impose on you a shitload of debuffs, with which the vector of your goals can easily shift into something useless or even criminal. So who do we swing at in the end? On our server, there is a great advantage because, although we have some passives from birth, we can develop characteristics of different classes, thus creating a unique bill, which can and should be adjusted in the process of pumping you. Not a stone, and the main skill that will help you successfully reach the Yond content. It's a re-skill, because if at this point you've pumped into a support build or caript, it doesn't mean you need to stay in it for the rest of your role. You are much more complex and versatile than you think. Your innate skills can simply be turned off and you, with a lot of effort, you can awaken them and change your gameplay beyond recognition. But the key to spec is to align your gameplay with your temperament. After all, if you consciously decide to piss against the wind, then don't wonder why your pants are pissed. If you're a sapport, you'll want to see how the carries behave, how they interact with party members, how they accomplish their goals and get people to like them. If you are a carry, however, try to help someone at least once a day. It will jumpstart your socialization. The main thing is not to become hostage to your build. Thank you all.